Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us here at the Sonoma Avenue Church of Christ for our Sunday starter. A very good and thoughtful friend approached me one day and expressed some concern over something I had posted on Facebook. I was grateful that she came to me and that she did so in a loving and caring manner, wanting to actually talk about this with me. We talked through her concerns. I gave her my perspective on that particular issue. Some tears were shed, and I left the encounter thankful for having had the opportunity to talk it out with someone that I love. The next day she approached me again, and this really speaks to what kind of person she is. She had spent the remainder of the previous day and most of the night trying to get to the bottom of why my post bothered her so much. She realized that the thing she was really worried about was not necessarily what my post said, but it was the unity of the church. She knew that some people might disagree with my post, and she didn't want something that is said or done on social media to become divisive within our community. Now, can we all agree that social media is a place that is fraught with peril? Those of you who have been my friend for a while know that I did my best to stay away from social media for as long as I could. As an introvert, I don't really have the energy for it, and I don't understand why someone would want to know what I've eaten for dinner or what I'm doing for lunch. Now that Facebook has become a major platform for presenting ideas over the last several years, I'm even more uneasy about it. I have watched as friends of mine who are pastors were challenged over things that they said, took a stance on, or a message that they gave. Unlike my encounter with my good friend, they have not been treated as kindly or with as much respect. I even felt compelled to weigh into a discussion, which I hardly ever do that. Within this discussion on Facebook was the same concern. It was argued that Jesus came to promote peace and unity and did not comment on social or political issues, and that therefore any divisive stance taken by a preacher in particular is sinful. Some other more personal things were said about my friend. It is Facebook, after all. The thing that struck me about this discussion was that the person who made these comments had genuine fear. He was utterly afraid of losing unity, and he saw my friend as someone who should promote unity at all costs. All of these discussions are helping me to understand a little bit more what my voice should be and what I should say and how I should say it, but they raise some pretty serious questions for me. When should we speak and when should we be silent? What issues do we need to put our voice into, and what should we not press for the sake of unity? And this question is heightened for those of us who have felt God's call to pastor a church. And honestly, I kind of feel like if I'm not saying something that makes you uncomfortable, then I'm not doing my job very well. Now, it's impossible to have a 12-minute discussion about all of this, but I want to present a couple of ideas for you to think about leading up to this Sunday. It's no secret that the purpose of Jesus' mission on earth was peace, grace, love, forgiveness. This was announced from the moment that he appeared on this earth, from Luke chapter 2, verses 13 through 14. Suddenly, a great company of the heavenly host appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace to those on whom his favor rests." Now, through our study of the gospel, we have seen Jesus love dynamically in life-changing ways. We have seen him extend grace to those who were rejected and outcast. He drew children to him. He spent time with all different kinds of people, and he reminded everyone of what was most important. From Matthew chapter 22, verses 34 through 40. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question: "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. There is no question that Jesus called those who followed him to be people of love, grace, and peace. They were to be unified by the teachings of Jesus, drawn together by the love of God. And this is what Jesus wanted. But it was not the actual effect of his ministry. The effect of Jesus' ministry here on earth was actually division. Listen to these words from Luke chapter 12, verses 49 through 53. Jesus says, I have come to bring fire on the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. But I have a baptism to undergo, and what constraint I am under until it is completed. Do you think I came to bring peace on earth? No, I tell you, but division. From now on there will be 5 in one family divided against each other, 3 against 2 and 2 against 3. They will be divided, father against son and son against father, mother against daughter and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. Jesus knew something that is a little bit difficult for us to grasp. While the gospel is at its heart a message of love, it is not often received as such. And part of that could be just how the church is presenting or not presenting the gospel. But there's another element to this that Jesus understood, and that is the gospel of Jesus Christ is divisive. Jesus was not afraid of this divisiveness while he promoted the gospel message. So I know it's weird, but he knew that his message of love would actually push people apart. There are some truths about the ministry of Jesus that are undeniable. He was not afraid of confronting others, especially if they communicated a message that was contrary to the one he taught. 3 times in the book of Matthew, he called the religious leaders a brood of vipers. And just listen to this section from Matthew chapter 23, verses 23 through 33. Woe to you, teachers of law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give 1/10 of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former. You blind guides, you strain out a gnat, but swallow a camel. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and dish, and then the outside also will be clean. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You build tombs for the prophets and decorate the graves of the righteous. And you say, if we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we would not have taken part with them in shedding the blood of the prophets. So you testify against yourselves that you are the descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Go ahead then and complete what your ancestors started. You snakes, you brood of vipers, how will you escape being condemned to hell? Yikes. Those are really strong words. And it's hard to overlook within these passages that what Jesus is most concerned about is that people are presenting themselves as outwardly good, outwardly holy, but they are not speaking into issues of injustice or poverty. They are not reaching out with the love of God to change the world that they're in. And therefore, to Jesus, they are all of the wrong things. I mean, we can't forget that Jesus was crucified as a political prisoner. He stirred the pot and people didn't like it. And yes, some people saw him as the loving embodiment of God that he was, while others saw him as an emissary of the devil and a threat to their way of life. Now look, not one of us is Jesus. Thank goodness. Jesus expects us to treat one another with love, grace, and humility. We must love others, and just because we disagree with someone on something, it does not give us the right to question their motivations, call them names, or to suggest that they don't really love God. We need to be unified as a church, loving and supporting one another. However, the gospel must be spoken, and where the gospel is spoken, there is the distinct possibility that division will happen. When the person replied to my Facebook response, he mentioned something that he didn't know what my politics are, and my message back was that this has nothing to do with politics and everything to do with the gospel of Jesus being proclaimed to a broken and hurting world. Some will hear the gospel and be transformed, while others will reject the gospel and maybe reject you as well, the proclaimer. But the gospel must still go out. It is the foundation of all we are and believe. And it is the core of everything that we have to say. But it cannot simply be spoken. It must also be lived. Want to know more? I guess I'll have to see you on Sunday.